Hi everyone! I'm back with part 4 in my Procreate Tutorial Series. In previous videos, we've gone over how to get started with Procreate, sketching and line art, and my experience with coloring in Procreate. And if you haven't watched that last one yet, I'll put that link up here in the top right. And today we'll be picking up where we left off so that I can show you all how I add shading and lighting to my illustrations. Again, this is in no way affiliated with Procreate, and I'm not an expert. I didn't go to art school or anything like that. I'm just a self-taught artist, and I've only been drawing in Procreate for a little over 2 years now, but I wanted to share my experience and techniques with you in case you find any of this helpful. So let's dive in. I went ahead and finished coloring this Spam Musubi with all the flat colors, and for now I changed the line art back to black because I'm actually going to color the line art after I add the shading and the lighting. I start with adding the shading, and I actually separate them out in a few different layers to build on one another. You don't have to do it that way. You can just as easily add the shading to a single layer, but I like to separate them out into multiple layers in case I make a mistake. There are two main ways I add shading. One, using darker colors on a normal layer, and two, using grayscale on a hard light layer. I'll show you method one first. And I'm not going to get into color theory or anything like that in this video. I'm just going to briefly show you the overall mechanism of what I do. Okay, before we add layers, actually, I want to make sure that my flat color layer is selected, and I'm going to go to the selection tool. Let's see if I have anything saved from the previous video. I'm going to delete this, so we're kind of starting from scratch. I'm going to select automatic, and what I want to do is select each color, or each color in each segment of the Spam Musubi. So I want the Nori first, and let's see what that threshold value is. It's pretty low, so I'm going to drag it to the top, close to 100%. 99.9.8. Then I'm going to save that selection, and you see it's there. Then I'm going to click out of that, click back in. Automatic is selected again. I can also, I'll show you another method of clearing it. Select the spam. I believe I set it accidentally to 100, so let's go further down. You can either undo like that, or if I have it selected here, you can press clear and it'll clear your selection, and we saved it so it's still there. See? Alright, so let's pick the spam. Probably good enough. I want to click all of the spam, then save that. Okay, and then clear, and then now picking the rice, save that. Clear. Okay, now I open this, create a new layer, and this will be my, I'm going to rename it shading 1. And then I'm going to clip it to the flat color. That means that I'm not actually coloring on the flat color layer, so everything on the flat color is intact. It's unaltered. I'm just putting a layer on top of that and clipping it so that it'll only draw on what's already on the flat layer without actually altering the flat layer. See? So I want to clear that. Okay, so I take my color picker, green. For shading, I go down and to the right a little bit, and I'll just use solid hard airbrush. And now I want to darken the Nori, so I'll open the selection, saves, and select the Nori, and then click back into my paintbrush, and then I can go and add some shading to it. See how that color darkens a little bit? So let's say the light is coming, I don't know, somewhere from the top. The top and behind it a little bit, so the shading's on this side. So that's the shading done with a darker color on a normal shading layer. So let me go ahead and shade the rest of it. Alrighty, so that is method one. The other method I use, like I said, is using a grayscale on the hard light blend mode. So, like I said, I kind of build the shading. So I'm gonna just add another layer, clip it onto, even though it's on top of this shading layer, it's still actually clipped to the flat color layer. They're all clipped to the flat color layer. So I will rename this shading 2. We're going to click on the N. These are all the blend modes. So I'm going to go to hard light. And what this does, or part of what this does, is I go to value because it's easier to see. If I change, let's go to 45%. Basically, the darker you go under, this is all grayscale, sorry. The darker you go, so 50%, oops, won't show anything. It'll basically color match. See? I'm still drawing on it, but you can't see anything. So let me clear that, and then let me go to, let's go to 40%. And now the colors will appear darker. See? And basically the lower you go, the darker it'll get. The closer to 0% to black you get, the darker all the colors will show up. I rarely go that dark. Usually I start with 45% and work my way down towards, I don't know, maybe 30 in subsequent layers. So let's go with a soft brush this time. And again, on this shading layer, now you can kind of see more so on the green that things are getting darker. If I go down to maybe 30, and make the brush a little bit smaller, then you can kind of see a little bit more of the dark colors happening there. And that's obviously not where the shading, well, Marius and Magnus are chasing each other, so that's what all that noise is. This is obviously not necessarily where the shading would go, depending on your light source, but I just want to show you based on what we have here. I want to make sure that you can actually see what I'm doing. Guys, be good, please. So yeah, those are my two shading methods. Let me undo it. We'll just go a little bit here. Kind of want to take a light touch approach. Make this a little bit smaller. And then smudge it out a little bit so it doesn't look like I burnt the Spam too much. So yeah, those are my two shading methods. There you see I use the darker colors on a normal blend layer, and then I used grayscale on a hard light layer. Now onto the lighting. What I do for the lighting is on top of these I add another layer and I clip it just like the last two, and I change it from normal blend mode to add blend mode. And then for lighting, I typically use a soft brush again, and I'll go in and choose like a sunny yellowish color. And you see like a soft glow happening there. So let's say this Spam is out on the beach on a sunny day about to be eaten. And that's usually how I add my lighting. Now, again, it depends on your light source. I'm not going to go into the directionality of it too much. But in terms of colors, let's say, let's clear this. Let's say part of your background, I'm going to add another layer. I'm actually going to move this below the flat color layer. Let's pick a purple. Let's say your background of your illustration is kind of like a purplish color. Vibrant purple. Okay, so increase that so you have a nice purple background to your Spam Musubi. So because it's surrounded by purple, I want the lighting to be kind of purple. So let's pick kind of like a fluorescent-ish purple for the lighting. Again, I'm back on my lighting. Oh, I didn't rename it. Let's go lighting. Lighting 1. Okay, so now we're going to add some purplish light. And then once I'm done with my shading and lighting, I then go in and color my lines like I showed you in the last video. So let me again make a copy of this just to keep in case I don't like what I'm doing and I want to go back to that. But I'm going to alpha lock this line art layer. Now for shaded areas, I usually go darker, and for lighter areas, I go lighter for the line art. So let me color pick that color there. Let's make it a little bit darker. I'm gonna switch back to my hard airbrush, and then you zoom in a little bit. Then I'm gonna color the lines. You see how it's a little bit darker than the shading area I have there. It's not the best looking rice. Please don't judge me on that. I'm just really quickly picking colors. If I wanted to make it look more delicious and edible, I'd take my time a little bit more, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's do the Spam, color pick that, go a little bit darker. Okay, now for the lighter parts. Oh, that does not look lighter. It's okay. And then what you can do is blend out that line art a little bit with your smudge tool so that it looks, so that the divide between the two colors isn't so harsh. Don't really like the color I used here. But of course, it's all subjective, so whatever color you choose, you do you. Now, if you don't want your line art to show, you can also just color pick and match your lines to the colors around it. And that way it won't look like you have any lines at all. So instead of picking a lighter color, I would just go with the color here and kind of color match it throughout. It might take a little more time, especially if the colors kind of switch and you have to blend it out a little bit more. Oh, there we go. So you can kind of get it close. It just might take some trial and error to match the colors a little bit. Might be a little easier here. See? Then it doesn't look like you have any line art. So that's another way to do it if you'd like. And that's how I typically add shading and lighting to my illustrations. I hope you guys enjoyed it and perhaps even found some of it helpful. Just remember, it's your art, your creations, so you do you. This is by no means the only way to add shading and lighting. This is just how I do it, and I'm sure my process will change and expand as I continue to learn and grow. So don't be afraid to try new things and play around with your art and techniques every now and then. And speaking of learning, Procreate's website has a lot of really helpful information, so I recommend taking a look at that if you're interested in finding out more. It even has some great descriptions of what each blend mode is. And again, these are the blend modes. It has some great descriptions of what each of those are and how they work. So I'll leave a link to that particular page down in the video description for you to check out. I actually wish I had taken a look at that site a little earlier on in my journey with using the Procreate app, so hopefully it will help you now. And the next video will be my last video in this Procreate tutorial series, and I'll be walking you through how I do some final color adjustments for my illustrations. Things like increasing the saturation and vibrancy, playing around with some color tones, etc. So tune in next week if that's something you're interested in, and for now, bye! I left? I'm sorry. Okay. Maggie?
This is quite a remarkable story. We started off with
Mars, what you doing?
I'm sure you already noticed.
You crazy!
Certain
You little vampire. Away go. Let go.